Yeah. He had to go to a study hall today for making the right score to get into the military.
That's what he wanted to do when he first started coming.
Yeah, so he's still working on that.
Good.
Thanks for coming tonight and joining us on Facebook and on Zoom. We appreciate it. And we're going to get started with Bible study. We're going to be we'll be jumping around just a little bit. Most of our time we're going to spend in 1 Kings. And so we'll start 1 Kings 3 probably is a good place to start. And then we'll move around some. I thought you guys might be interested in trying to figure out a little bit about, I think King Solomon is a good start because a lot of times King Solomon started off really strong in his walk with God, and then later on in life struggled as he got older. And sometimes we see folks that grow in their faith all the way till the day they die, and then other times we see people who grow in their faith to a certain point, and then as they get older, then they tend to kind of fall away from God because the world changes so much around them, and they get kind of bitter because they look around and they see, my grandfather, I did his funeral at 98 years old, and he was born before airplanes existed, before they were invented. And I thought, goodness gracious, all the things that he saw in his lifetime that, you know what I'm saying? He was born in 1898 or whatever at the time, I think. And so it was tremendous to see all the world had changed. And he said, I would say, the world's really changed a lot. And he would go, not for the good. So I was like, okay, yeah, I guess. I can understand that. For us, if we look at Solomon's life, Solomon, became king, and he was David's son with Bathsheba, and so he started off as a good king. Remember, God asked him, what can I give you? What is it that you would like? And he said, wisdom. Now for us, if God said, what would you like me to give you? Well, there's a lot of responses that could be there, right? I'm going to need $10 billion, or what, you know what I'm saying? We could ask for, somebody to fall in love with us. I want to be married to so-and-so. I want to live here and so-and-so. I want to have this or have this or have this. And he asked for wisdom, and God said, because you were smart and asked for wisdom, I'm going to give you, all the desires of your heart, basically, as well. So we're going to try to figure out tonight, by looking briefly, and we're going to spend a couple of weeks doing this, but trying to figure out what gets them off track. Because in our lives, and I mentioned this on Sunday, the carrots that Satan kind of hangs out in front of us sometimes as temptations, but there are other things out there that get us off track. And for us, I want us to establish the fact of if we're going to have a life plan, it ought to be straight out of the Bible in terms of what we believe about the world. And so if we'll just use it as our moral compass, then we'll always be okay. But if we start listening to other things, then we get off track. And so tonight, look at 1 Kings 3. And for those of you that are online, you're looking at, I'm not a Chicago Blackhawks fan. My wife gave me, as you can see, the Clark Griswold hockey jersey for Christmas. And so, I thought I would wear it tonight because I like it a lot. So, and if you fall through the ceiling at your house, then you're allowed to wear this jersey. And I have it. All right, so it says, Solomon made an alliance with Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and married his daughter. He brought her to the city of David until he finished building his palace and the temple of the Lord and the wall around Jerusalem. So Solomon, at this point, and he's a king, he has started. Let's be honest. If you have ultimate wisdom, if you're really smart, you understand you can't do it all by yourself. I don't care if you're cooking a meal, or if you're keeping the back 40 cleared, or if you're working as an accountant, or you're working, down here as a teacher, whatever it might be. If you're just doing anything, trust me. In my yard work throughout the years, I had Jill was out there helping me, Noah, Caleb, EJ out there helping me, and finally Selah. And the more people you have, what do you find?
More stuff to do.
Well, it gets done quicker. It really does get done quicker. Well, and Heidi's right is that there's more stuff to do because you can leave them doing something and go into something else. But working together is a good thing. And so here he is, and he's saying, I'm going to make an alliance with Egypt. And that's a great thing, because actually countries cooperating is a benefit to you, right? I mean, everybody sees that. We do very little of it, it seems like to me. We argue and fuss and fight with everybody, and we seem to take care of everybody as the United States and send money everywhere around the world, and everybody hates us. But for the most part, we understand working together is a good thing. He's doing this, and he makes an alliance, and back then, for them, if you did that, you had your kids married. And that's not just back then, that happens today. This king over here and this king over here, they have kids, and their kids intermarry because this powerful family now is matched up with this powerful family. That's what he's doing there. He takes, it doesn't say he loved, Pharaoh's daughter. It just says, we made a pact, and so I took her daughter. I took his daughter and as a sign, as a memento of this, and he marries her. Well, the idea behind that, we would say, that's fine, I guess. If you're into arranged marriages or whatever, you can understand that still goes on around the world and all that. But God has already told them in His Word, don't intermarry with all these other countries. And He says the reason is they will lead you astray. And so He has gone and done this, and he's done something that's outside God's law. Okay? He chose to do that. And the reason is because He thinks it's a smart thing. You know what I mean? Plus, what if she looks really good? You know what I'm saying? It's like win-win. Okay, so I have this alliance with Pharaoh, which will keep us in good graces with Egypt, because Egypt's always been a world power. We're an up-and-coming power under my reign. But he not only gets that peace accord, he gets a beautiful woman. It's not. I'm sure if she came walking out and she's missing all of her teeth or whatever, you know what I'm saying? If she was, you know what I mean? It's whatever it might be. It could be anything, but he could say, I don't want her, whatever. But he did. He chose her, and this is, we read that and we go, okay, I don't see what's wrong in that. But let's look at, if we flip over to chapter 11, so 1 Kings 11, this gets us to the point, remember we're talking about what gets us off track, is there anything wrong with eating a piece of pizza? Absolutely not. Anything wrong with eating a whole pizza? Yes. Okay? Gives you high cholesterol. Gives you, throws everything off. And so the excess of it can be, what gets us off track. It says in 1 Kings 11, King Solomon, however, loved many foreign women besides Pharaoh's daughter. Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, Hittites. They were from nations about which the Lord had told the Israelites, you must not intermarry with them, because they will surely turn your hearts after their gods. Nevertheless, Solomon held fast to them in love. He had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines, and his wives led him astray. 1,000. So 700 and 300. 300 are, and the concubine word is, that those are just like in the way that you would think of the word harem today. That is his harem. That is a group of women that their only reason for existence is what? Have relations with him. Yep. That's the only reason they're there. 300 of them. How many days are in the year? 365 days in the year. And he's got 1,000 women.
3 years to do.
Sorry, 3 years. It'd take 3 years. Every day, Bob. Every day it would take 3 years. Yes, exactly. So, goodness gracious, but you can see, I hate to even use the word love. That's what Scripture says, though. He loved them. 700 wives and 300 concubines. But what we find is, if we keep reading here, look, keep going just a little bit. It says, as Solomon, I'm in verse 4, as Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father had been. He followed Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and Molech, the detestable god of the Ammonites. So Solomon did evil in the eyes of the Lord. He did not follow the Lord completely, as David his father had done. On a hill east of Jerusalem, Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the detestable god of Moab, and for Molech, the detestable god of the Ammonites. He did the same, turning the page here, my fingers are sticking together, for all his foreign wives who burned incense and offered sacrifices to their gods. The Lord became angry with Solomon because his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice. So, for him, I'm sure, to keep the peace in his family, he said, I'm going to the temple to worship. I'm a Jew. I'm going to the temple. Would you like to go with me? Well, I'm not from here. I'm not Jewish. My wife right here, she's from Tyre and Sidon, and we worship this God. And Solomon, you brought me from my homeland. What you should do is you go to your temple and build me one so I can go to my temple. Right? That would be fair, because you took me from my homeland, you made a government pact, you got the peace accord, and now I'm here with you. So he built her one, right? Built her a place to go worship her God. And this wife right here says, well, you built her one for her God. Why won't you build one for me and my God? And so he builds one for her. Well, there's 700 wives, right? There's no telling how many places he built to go worship, right? But then once they were all built, and on Saturday when they got up, and he goes, I'm going to the temple, what did they say? Solomon, it's my week to be with you, or whatever. Would you go with me and mine? Just this once. Do you mind going with me? And then he goes, I don't really. She goes, no, I'm just saying, whatever it might be. It might just be Solomon. Hey, Solomon, would you please, Solomon. 375 times she says, Solomon, would you go with me? And he finally goes, yes, I will go with you. Just like Heidi at her class at school, right? Miss Upshaw, Miss Upshaw, Miss Upshaw, Miss Upshaw, Miss Upshaw. Yes, you can do whatever you want. Whatever you want to do, you can go do it, right? Whatever you want to do, just go do it. Whatever means, whatever form of manipulation had to be out there, we get the idea that he started going with them to their different places, and it said his heart was turned from our God. And the part that we miss out on, do y'all remember back when Moses was leading the children of Israel, he said it's really important when we're in Moab that you don't participate in their worship services. And they're there, and the people of Moab are so welcoming, and they're so nice to them, all this kind of stuff. And then part of their worship was all this wonderful food. Well, we just ate a bunch of great food, right? But there's this big bunch of food. Along with that was all kinds of alcohol and those kind of things. So it was like a feast. So we get high in our spirits, and then you got to have sex with people as part of your worship of your God. And so Moses is standing there, and his people are going, ours is we go and we sing and we praise God and we pray, and then you tell us a message, and if I go over here, I get to eat all this food, drink all this stuff, and sleep with as many women as I want to sleep with. Which one do I want to do? Let's see. And they actually caught some of his people in the act, and they killed them. They for the idolatry that was there. And so you can see that the allure of the other religion was just like we look around the world and we go, wow, that's a gold Buddha, or that's a temple, or whatever it might be. We see how elaborate it is and ornate. We walk in, my friend got married in a Episcopal church. It was basically a Catholic type service. And when we went in and sat down, as soon as you were there, they had these horns, these giant big horns back behind, and they were like, da, 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 da. And it was like these, it was just blowing, and then everybody was like, and they were dressed in these beautiful outfits and all this stuff, and everybody, I was just like, there was smoke, and I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever been to in my life, right? Because of all the pomp and the circumstance that went on with it. The allure of all of these different, because it's not something he knew, it's something from a foreign land. And if you've ever gone, my son and his new wife just got back from Costa Rica, and they were like, we were ziplining through the rainforest, and then we went over here and we were able to, and they're talking about Costa Rica and how wild a country it was, and wild animals and monkeys here, and I was like, wow, that sounds really neat. Same premise. I'm from this country, and this is how we do things, and when you walk in, it's so foreign to you that you go, wow, this is beautiful, and unfortunately, you don't know everything that they believe, right? Just like we talked about when William Carey got to India about people standing on the riverbank throwing their babies into the crocodiles to try to make sure that they had great crops that year from their farms. or that they had sati, where they were killing the wife if the husband died. All those things that we don't know about as part of that religion. Well, he gets involved with that, and then in a very small paragraph nutshell there, it says he was led astray, right? So here he is, and you're talking about Solomon, who is the wisest man in the Bible other than Jesus. Now, if the wisest man in the Bible can get led astray, how easy is it for us to get led astray? You know what I mean? It is. It's one of those things that just comes up on us. So let's think about this for a second. So who did Solomon listen to? He listened to God, but then who did he listen to?
Other people.
1,000 wives, right? That's who he was listening to them, and he was obeying them, right? That's what we have to be able to fathom is when, who do you obey for sure on a regular basis? So is it God? Because sometimes we can say, I always obey God. And then we go to work, and, one of my best friends, she went into the office, and she worked for the government, and the government changed. We switched presidents, and the government said, I don't want to see anything in this office that reflects Christ at all. I don't want to see any Christian stuff on the walls. I don't want to see a Bible on your desk. I don't want to see your screensaver be Jesus. I don't want to see, anything that has to do with religion. And they were honest. They said, no Muslim stuff, no Jewish stuff, no Indian stuff, no, whatever it might be, Mormon stuff, none of it. We don't want to see any of it. And they just made you. And so she had to take it all down. And they said, we don't want to talk about those things. We don't want to hear you in conversation at the water cooler. We don't want to hear you at all these places, because your job's at risk. You could lose your job. And I said, did you obey all that stuff? And she goes, yes. And I said, why was that? She goes, because they were going to fire me. It was my job. And I said, okay, I just want us to understand about who do we obey? When push comes to shove, who do we obey? And so, did you always obey your parents? I know you all are not in the room, but everybody went, no, we didn't always obey our right? Is that those are people, nobody on this planet loved you more than your mom and dad. Now, some of us can say, okay, I had a rotten mom, or I had a rotten dad, or I had a rotten family, or whatever, but I did not. But when you were born, your mom loved you, right? And so they do everything they can for us. They have rules. They have things because they don't want us to be injured. They don't want us to get hurt. They want us to grow up to be productive members of society. Loved us more than anybody else, and yet we didn't obey them, right? Always. May have a lot of times, but not always. So we have to try to figure out, who is it that I'm obeying? Who's keeping me in check in terms of, am I always going to, is it I always listen to my granddad. He gives me advice, I go do what he says. Or is it my best friend? Whatever my best friend says, I trust him, I go do it. It's my wife. Whatever she says, I go do it. Right? Whatever.
All the men laughed.
There's people just looking like with blank stares in the room about this. So Solomon was listening to his wives, and that crept in on him. Why do you think that is? Why do you think his wives became where he listened to them more than he listened to God?
Well, they were an audible ear, an audible voice in his ear that were constantly nagging, constantly saying things, and God's not going to do that.
And I'm not sure they were constantly nagging. I used the term manipulation. Manipulation can be a lot of things. To get your way, how do you get your way? You think about that for a second. Sometimes it's, if you want your kid to obey something that you want them to do, you go, here's $500. Will you go do this? And they go, yes, sir. Then they take your money, they put it in their pocket, and they go do what you ask them to do. So bribery is one way that sometimes Jill will walk in and she will say, you're looking really good tonight, Chris. Have you lost some weight? You're looking fit. B's got you working out. You're looking better. And I go, what do you want? Right? It's that kind of, what are you up to? Because that flattery is not good, right? Flattery is one of the ways we manipulate. Crying, that's one of the ways we manipulate. Sometimes I had done marriage counseling, and this one girl, we were sitting there in this marriage counseling, and let's just say it was buying a car, right? Or we need to buy a new car. And the husband said, we don't need a new car. And she said, we do need a new car. And I was like, I understand you guys just got to negotiate this or whatever. She goes, there's no negotiation. My whole family will tell you we need a new car. And she'd gone to her mom, her dad, her grandparents, her aunts and uncles, and they all were like, you need to buy her a new car is what you need to do. Gathering support, right? So that I'm overwhelmed. There's too many people here against me. I guess we should buy a new car, right? That's one of the things that we do. The silent treatment, that's a manipulation tool, right? I'm just not going to speak to you. I'm going to give you the cold shoulder for, however long. That doesn't work, by the way. Men enjoy that. A lot of times women enjoy that. Sometimes their husband's not speaking to them. They kind of like that. So, but he got to where he was, and what Jill was saying kind of resonated with me, is that they were there in the room with him. God's up there somewhere, and even though God speaks to us, he's not in the room there with us. He's not a beautiful woman that's standing there whispering and smelling really good, and you know what I'm saying, God's not a woman in a bikini standing there, right? And he's going, yes, ma'am, I'll do whatever you say, right? I mean, he is literally being manipulated into doing whatever. And the experience of life sometimes overwhelms us. You understand what I mean by that? Okay, so I have friends who inherited a lot of money. A lot of money. They go from experience to experience to experience to experience to experience to experience, and they have lives that we would all go, whoa, I would love to do that, I would love to do that. But when you sit down and talk to them, when you sit down and have conversation, my buddy, he and his wife, he'll say things like, I got to go to Hawaii next week. And I'm like, what are you going to go to Hawaii for? Well, my wife has set this thing up with her sorority sisters, and we're all going to Hawaii. We're going to spend a week, take all the kids, and I got to go there for 7 days. And then when I get back, we're going to be in Las Vegas for a few days. And then after we do Las Vegas, then I come back for a wedding that's in the Caribbean, and we got to go. And I'm never home.
Sounds like a hard life.
Yeah, exactly, right? But the experiences, you know what I'm saying? Because of what money affords us, those things start crowding God out, because it's a whole lot more fun to go do that than to go do this, right? To go do this, there's this trade-off. And so for him, each one of these women, there's an excitement level, there's all these things that are going on, and they're there in the room with him, and it's just him listening to them. All right, so let's turn over a couple of pages, because I want you to see something else. So we're going to talk about Rehoboam for just a second. And the reason we're going to talk about, hang on, let's talk about Solomon for just a second. There's a couple of other reasons that were there, and I don't want to gloss over these. Look at 1 Kings verse 10. 1 Kings 10, verses 14 and 15. And I've mentioned this before, but we've never read it. I'm going to show you where it is, because sometimes, and this just goes along with what I was just talking about, 1 Kings 10, 14 and 15. It says, the weight of the gold that Solomon received yearly was 666 talents, not including the revenues from merchants and traders and from all the Arabian kings and the governors of the territories. And if you go down to the footnotes, 666 talents equals 25 tons of gold a year. We say that gold is this valuable by the ounce. 16 ounces in a pound, right? Gold's like $1,500 an ounce. That's tons, 2,000 pounds. 25 tons a year that he's being given. So remember, I read Sunday, we can't serve two masters, both God and money. And so for him, 25 tons of gold, everything was possible for him. Everything was possible. He could buy anything, he could go anywhere, he could do anything he wanted to do. So there's a good part of that, and then there's a bad part that goes along with that. Okay, so then let's look at one more thing here. He accomplished two things kind of back to back. Look at 1 Kings 6:37. He accomplished two things, and this is going to tell you something about his personality and his character. So 1 Kings 6:37. It says, and this is, David wasn't allowed to, but Solomon built God's temple there in Jerusalem. And it says, the foundation of the temple of the Lord was laid in the 4th year, in the month of Ziv. In the 11th year, in the month of Buel, the 8th month, the temple was finished in all its details according to its specifications. He had spent 7 years building it. So he built God's temple. It took 7 years. Now watch the second half of this. Look at 7:1. So one page over, basically. And then after he builds God's temple, which he did that as the priority, the second thing he does is build himself a palace. And it says, it took Solomon 13 years, however, to complete the construction of his palace. He spent twice as much time building his palace as he did building the temple, right? And so I want us to see that because it tells us something about him, about how elaborate it was. Remember, you hear people talk about Solomon's temple and Solomon's palace and all of the ornate stuff, and just, it'll go through there and tell you everything about it, and you just go, it's got ivory this, ebony this, gold this, silver this, fur sinks, all that stuff. All, crazy silly stuff. It doesn't really say fur sinks. I'm just making that up. So here he is, and all of these things are contributing to the picture that we have of Solomon. And one of the things that you're going to notice is it became less about God and more about him.
Doesn't that look like the ark, the dimensions?
Similar, yes. I mean, in terms of laying it out, you're right. That's exactly right.
100 by 50 by 30.
Yep. Something to keep in mind there. I mean, there's a reason behind some of the stuff that he did. All right, let's look at Rehoboam here for a second, because look at 12, 1 Kings 12, 6 and 7. And this is when Solomon is done and his son takes over, 1 Kings 12, 6 and 7. His name's Rehoboam. And when under Solomon, the kingdom is together. Judah and Israel. Israel's in the north, Judah in the south. They're all one kingdom. And Solomon and David ruled over one kingdom. When Solomon leaves or dies and his son Rehoboam takes over, there's going to be a chance for stuff to, you're going to be like, okay, we're going to need to know what's it going to be like under Rehoboam. Look at this. Look at 6 and 7. So, and actually, if we're honest about it, this is who he consults about what to do. He's trying to figure out what to do. Look at verse 1, because I'm going to start in 12:1. Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel had gone there to make him king. When Jeroboam, son of Nebat, heard this, he was still in Egypt, where he had fled from King Solomon. He returned from Egypt, so they sent for Jeroboam, and he and the whole assembly of Israel went to Rehoboam and said to him, "Your father put a heavy yoke on us, but now lighten the harsh labor and the heavy yoke he put on us, and we will serve you." Rehoboam answered, "Go away for 3 days and then come back to me." So the people went away. And then here's the two things that happened. Then Rehoboam consulted the elders who had served his father Solomon during his lifetime. "How would you advise me to answer these people?" And they say, lighten up on them. That's what his dad's elders say to him. And he said, "I'm not going to do that. I want to hear what my friends," and this is where it is. Look with me at 12:8. Look at 12:8. It says, "But Rehoboam rejected the advice the elders gave him and consulted the young man he had grown up with and were serving him. He asked them, 'What is your advice? How should we answer these people who say to me, lighten the yoke your father put on us?' And they say, 'Tell him you're a scorpion and that you're going to make it worse than what your dad was doing. You're going to be tougher and ruthless and all this kind of stuff.'" And he goes, "Yeah, that sounds good." And he told them that. And they leave. It creates war, and the northern and southern kingdoms split apart. Jeroboam takes the north, Rehoboam takes the south. Now, what just happened there was a united kingdom just split. Why is that? Who was he listening to? His friends. It said the people he grew up with and the people who served him. Doesn't mean servants. It means his posse. It means the people, you hear the word entourage today. You have a sports figure or somebody that does music or whatever it might be, somebody who's famous, and it's never just them, it's always them plus their entourage that they take care of, right? Family members, friends, people they grew up with, and they provide, they pay for all of the stuff that goes along, their travel, their food, their place to stay, all those kind of things. So he's not listening to God, he's listening to his friends that he grew up with. And where does that get him? Because you see Solomon and where it gets him, but where does it get him? And this is the sad part to me. Solomon takes some of that gold and he makes gold shields for the military, and he keeps these gold shields in the temple of God. They're ornate. They can walk down the street with these things, right? As soon as he dies and Rehoboam takes over and this happens, the Egyptians attack, come and take all the gold. They take all of that, all those shields, and take them back to Egypt. So a lot of what they had given Solomon, they take back almost immediately because Rehoboam had turned from God. All right, so he was king for 3 years. Big surprise there, right? No, I'm sorry, he was king 17 years. And then his son takes over, and this is, his name is Abijah. And look at 1 Kings 15 with me. 1 Kings 15. And actually, let's keep your finger there, but flip over to 2 Chronicles 13, because I want to look at that. 2 Chronicles 13. Because this is telling the same story, but they're just elaborating a little bit more in Chronicles about Abijah's life. So 2 Chronicles 13, just a couple of books over. And look at what goes on here. It says, in the 18th year of the reign of Jeroboam, Abijah became king of Judah, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 years. His mother was Maacah, a daughter of Uriah of Gibeah. There was war between Abijah and Jeroboam. All right? And then flip down to 4, and it says, Abijah stood on Mount Zemarim in the hill country of Ephraim and said, Jeroboam and all Israel, listen to me. Don't you know that the Lord, the God of Israel, has given the kingship of Israel to David and his descendants forever by a covenant of Saul? Yet Jeroboam, son of Nebat, an official of Solomon, son of David, rebelled against his master. Some worthless scoundrels gathered around him and opposed Rehoboam, son of Solomon, when he was young and indecisive and not strong enough to resist them. And now you plan to resist the kingdom of the Lord, which is the hands of David's descendants. You are indeed a vast army, and have with you the golden calves that Jeroboam made to be your gods. Okay, let's stop there for a second. When they split apart in the north, Jeroboam said, if we let our people continue to go to Jerusalem and worship at the temple, we're never going to be completely split. They're still going to have some allegiance to those people. So I'm going to set up 2 golden calves, and these will be your gods here in the north. And you can go worship there at those 2 places. And they did that. And that's what he's talking about there, those 2 golden calves. And it says, if we pick up just a little bit more there, it says, I guess it's verse 9. But didn't you drive out the priests of the Lord, the sons of Aaron, the Levites, and make priests of your own as peoples of other lands do? Whoever comes to consecrate himself with a young bull and 7 rams may become a priest of what are not gods. Did you just hear that? Because he said light right there at the end. It says, in your own as the peoples of other lands do. So he's listening and doing what other countries were doing at the time. Verse 10 says, as for us, the Lord is our God, and we have, this is chapter 13, 2 Chronicles 13:10. As for us, the Lord is our God, and we have not forsaken him. The priests who serve the Lord are sons of Aaron. The Levites assist them. Every morning and evening they present burnt offerings and fragrant incense to the Lord. They set out our bread and ceremonially clean table and light the lamps on gold lampstands every evening. We're observing the requirements of the Lord our God, but you've forsaken him. God is with us. He is our leader. His priests with their trumpets will sound the battle cry against you. People of Israel, do not fight against the Lord, the God of your ancestors, for you will not succeed. Now I want you to hear this, because this is a battle that's going on. This is as good as any mini-series that you're going to watch, anything that you're going to sit on Netflix and watch, over and over and over. It says, now Jeroboam had sent troops around to the rear so that while he was in front of Judah, the ambush was behind them. Judah turned and saw that they were being attacked at both front and rear. Then they cried out to the Lord. It is never a good thing if you're in a battle to cry out. Just going to be honest with you. And yet that's what we're supposed to do. Cry out to God. We don't know how they were crying out, but imagine if you're sitting there and you've got your weapon, whatever it might be, and there's people in front of you fighting you, people behind you fighting you, and you just fall down and start going, dear Lord, please help me, right? You kind of look like weakness, right? It kind of the way that looks. And yet it's what we're called to do. Watch what happens here. Because it says that they're crying out. Then they cried out to the Lord. The priests blew their trumpets, and the men of Judah raised the battle cry. At the sound of their battle cry, God routed Jeroboam and all Israel before Abijah and Judah. The Israelites fled before Judah, and God delivered them into their hands. Abijah and his troops inflicted heavy losses on them, so that there were 500,000 casualties among Israel's able men. The Israelites were subdued on that occasion, and the people of Judah were victorious because they relied on the Lord, the God of their ancestors. Abijah pursued Jeroboam and took from him the towns of Bethel, Jeshanah, and Ephron, with their surrounding villages. Jeroboam did not regain power during the time of Abijah, and the Lord struck him down, and he died. Okay, I share that with you because where are we as a country today? If we went to war with whoever, would people say, God's on our side? When my grandparents went to war in World War II, they said God is on our side. They said those words. They believed that was the case. When they were fighting against Hitler and the Nazis and, the Japanese or whoever it was, Mussolini in Italy, they said, we're going to win this battle because God's on our side. Are we a Christian nation now? Is God on our side? I would have trouble with that when I start seeing the Air Force taking the God patch off of their uniform, right? There's so much stuff going on in our country that it makes me worry that if we ever do go into battle, because there's something to be said for being a good soldier, but there's something to be said for having God on your side, orchestrating events like Dunkirk. If you ever get a chance to watch that movie or read a book about that, God is in the midst of that wholeheartedly, because you know why that's such an important battle? Because we would all be speaking German right now if it had not happened. If that battle had not had gone the way that it did, Hitler would have just gone right into London and taken over Churchill and all of that, and I'm just telling you. So you need to watch that movie sometime. But the thing that I want you to see in all of this is that Abijah was only king for 3 years, and yet he says over and over, the Lord is our God. He's our leader. He's in charge. And for us, is that true in our lives? Is God the leader of our lives? Or are we the leader of our lives? You know what I'm saying? In terms of what we choose to do and who we obey. Is it that we are, do we just listen to our friends? Do we just listen to our boss? Do we just listen to our political party? Do we just listen to our parents? Do we just listen to, right? Who do we just listen to? And it's important because I'm trying to make the point that the Bible should be the end-all be-all in terms of our moral compass. Because if it's not, then if I marry somebody, and this is the part that's so scary to me right now, because I have 4 children that are of marrying age, right? And what I tell people, because I've done youth ministry for so long, is when I get up in the morning, I go, Dear Lord, please protect my children from people who will lead them astray. Please protect them, Lord, because there's going to be sweet smiling faces that are going to be like, hey, you're the greatest thing since sliced toast. I love you so much, and all this kind of stuff. Here, come use these drugs with me. It's going to be awesome. When just the 2 of us, we'll have ecstasy. It'll be just phenomenal, right? You all know it's true. You know that there's all of the different things that are out there that they could be lured into. So for us, in terms of praying to God, I can't physically lock my children in the basement until they're full grown and go, I protected them. Yeah, there, we're done, right? No, that's not going to do it. I can't call them every day and go, you know what I said? It's true, you need to do it. Yes, do it now. Do it. They go, shut up, old man, quit calling me, right? I mean, that's, why would they? I have to have God on my side because He's the one that's watching out for them in every situation, and I'm not there. My daughter's getting ready to get in a car and go driving around on I-65. I can't. Jill, you get on the left, I'll get on the right. Stay in that lane. Anything comes up, you just block it. Keep them out of there, right? No, we can't. That's not possible. Seela does not want me riding in the back seat on her dates. Young man, you watch that. Keep your eyes on the wheel right there, right? I'm going to order the chicken when I go in and eat with y'all, right? No, we can't do that. That's not protecting. And so with God on our side, He is watching over them, blessing them, introducing them to the people. And my oldest son, he's got a great Christian wife now, and that I attribute that to God smiling upon him and his walk with Christ. And my middle son I'm saying, are you right with the Lord when you're picking who you're going to marry? my youngest son, are you right with the Lord? Because it's a big deal to pick somebody that you're going to spend the rest of your life with. And, so it's for us, they'll call me and they'll say, I'm about to take a new job. Have you prayed about this? How's your walk with God right now? Because you can get off track really fast, right? You understand what I mean by that. And so we sit here and we look at these things and we try to figure out, okay, who are we listening to? Who, and not just listening to, but who gets us to obey? Who gets us to come and follow? And if it's Jesus, man, it's going to be awesome. But if it's somebody else, how does that work out? Because there's a whole bunch of people out there who say, okay, for you to have the best life ever, what you need to do is have as much money as you can get. Or you need to play sports and you need to be the most famous person on the planet. Or you need to travel all the time and go do these things. Or you need to have sex all the time with as many people as you possibly can. Or you need to use these drugs all the time. There are people telling them that all over. Those are all out there. People just one right after the other. You look around you and you can see it, right? Or there's another group out there that do this. If I were you, I'd just kill yourself because the world's going to be ending soon anyway, so you might as well, you're right, your life is bad. You should just commit suicide. And that's going on all over the place. Suicide rate in teenagers highest it's ever been. And they're buying into it. And I go, no, it's not. The world's an awesome place. I just put my feet in the powder white soft sand of Panama City Beach and looked at Caribbean blue water and stood there in the sunshine, and I was like, boy, it didn't get much better than this right here. My wife came out, she plopped down in a chair beside me, and she sat there and she reached out and took my hand, and I went, that's my wife, I love you, and we were sitting there together. My family's inside, I walk inside, there's all this food sitting out and everything, and life's not bad, life's not terrible. How can we be buying into, oh yeah, you should kill yourself, you should just do that now, the world's going to, wherever. We've got to be using the Bible to see, okay, here's the steps, here are the principles to put into place in your life. And in doing that, you find blessing, peace, satisfaction, hope, encouragement, all those things that most people don't have because they don't know who Jesus is. Let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this evening, and I do ask that you would help us to take in and really kind of evaluate who we're listening to in our lives and who's having an influence on us. And I pray, Lord, that we would be able to take hold of you and to trust you and to have faith in you and to know you daily and to seek you out and have you be the leader of our lives. And I pray, Lord, that we would understand, because all of us in this room have asked you to be our Savior, that we've asked you to save us from hell and to let us go to heaven. But then at the same time, we're supposed to ask you to be Lord, which means that you're our master, you're the commander, you're the one that tells us what to do each day, you're the one that, like a parent, loves us and works for our best and for our good. Thank you for that, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.